it's okay. Uh, all right, it looks like we're back. Hello,
Mm-hmm.
everyone. Sorry, my internet cut out. It cut out right as Cluster was reading Silver's dialogue at "How do you know?"
Yeah, very unfortunate timing. Uh,
Want to just pick up, or
yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that. Yeah, okay, we're definitely going again. So this will be a pain later.
yeah,
Silver has his dialogue where he says, "How do you know if you're working hard enough? I don't want to waste my time here, but I'm also supposed to enjoy what I've got. And with Blaze away, traveling, learning about the world, and then he gets interrupted.
yes. Where Whisper
Um,
says, "Yeah,
well, I want to focus on this dialogue
okay,
because it's bad.
yeah,
It's not like very. So I'm kind of a stickler for dialogue. This probably come up and it's probably been obvious as I've been reviewing comics. Um, but dialogue is something I think is very important, especially in a comic where it's just pictures and then words, typically spoken words by characters.
yeah,
I think dialogue should be full of character. I think any given line, you should be able to tell who said it, for the most part, without needing the visuals. Uh, are you okay?
yeah,
Okay. And when it's something like this, just like a bunch of exposition, a bunch of bland, inconsequential for the most part dialogue, it just really does not do it for me.
yeah,
Like, this whole thing is.
yeah." Um. At any rate, Silver gets interrupted by Whisper, who just randomly says and just says, "Come train with us." It didn't really feel like one led to another. It just kind of happened in that order, and
Like, the idea is, I think, that Whisper is interrupting him having a pity party for very little described reason in order to get him away from his own thoughts and let him, like, you know, work through his emotions by doing things rather than just stewing in his thoughts.
yeah, it's a very very good strategy for that. But
And then we get the worst interaction in the comic, I think,
yeah,
where Silver's like, "Wait, me in the diamond cutters?" Which is not what Whisper said.
yeah,
And then Tangle is like, "Heck yeah, dude, let's do this." And then as we cut to the training, we get Silver's like dialogue in a little narration box
I thought that was
saying,
gonna be that was Tangle because of no.
"I thought it was Silver because it's gray on gray.
Hmm.
They're both gray."
Yes.
I don't know. One of the white people says this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. So
It's not my fault they have two characters with incredibly similar color schemes.
yeah. So Landlin lays out some more exposition.
So, yeah. So he's talking about the restoration's re-greening effort and how it hasn't reached this part of Green Hill. So, because of course, as people remember in Sonic Forces, Green Hill underwent a significant amount of desertification
Yes.
due to Eggman's like diabolical and eco-unfriendly practices.
Yeah.
And apparently, the Restoration has been trying to combat that.
That would have been
A noble
neat.
goal for sure, but it'd be nice to have known that they were doing that.
That would have been a neat story, just like having Annie focus on the environmentalist aspect of the world.
I feel like establishing this would have been a better like annual story than I don't know, Jet the Hawk upset that his burrito was stolen or children at a daycare that was evil.
See, for me, the environmentalist aspect of Sonic is one of my favorite parts of it. You wouldn't know it
Mm-hmm.
because it's like never brought up by things nowadays, but like, yeah, it's a really cool part of it, and it's like one of the most relevant to the real world aspects of Sonic, and so I think it's always good when Sonic is dealing with that and not just going up its own ass with like lore continuity or whatever world building bullshit it's doing. Um,
Yeah. Something you might also remember is that the like one other time that environmental was brought up in a way that I felt satisfied by, because I was not satisfied by it in Urban Warfare.
yeah,
I think a sit job was done there.
it was very bad.
Was Evan Stanley's story, Trial by Fire, which talked about, forest fires
Mm-hmm.
and all that. And, the fact that things are fucking on fire lately. Have
Yeah,
you heard about Hawaii? Readers, viewers?
yeah.
Whew. It's bad.
Mm-hmm.
The planet is getting hotter and things are on fire. Anyway,
Yeah, it feels like, there's never a bad time to bring up the environment in your Sonic the Hedgehog comic book about
mm-hmm.
furries saving the world, the planet. But like,
Yeah.
I feel like now especially is one of the least bad times that we have ever had. Some
Mm-hmm.
would say best.
And props to Evan Stanley for being seemingly the only person on the book concerned with nature on this Sonic the Hedgehog comic book.
Yeah. Leyland continues to lay out what exactly will drive the conflict in this story, and
Well, he lays out what they're planning to do, though what they're planning to do honestly doesn't sound like very good training. Because it never happens, is the thing. Like, the thing they're about to do never actually occurs because they get interrupted.
yeah,
So it's vague exactly what their plan was here.
I was just looking at the next page where she is talking about how it's a good time to work on coordinating moves.
Yeah, I know what I'm
Communicating.
talking about.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, because
Like, yeah.
I look at that and and like it just sort of like and then coordinating moves doesn't quite happen and communicating
Well,
is not good.
well, no, what I mean is from like a practical in-universe perspective. They're here to plant trees
Yes.
and grass.
Mm-hmm.
How is that Well, how do you coordinate moves and communicate in the field practice when you're going to plant things?
That is a very good point.
Like, my immediate thought is just like, what are they gonna do? Like, they're here to help with the regreening efforts, right?
Yeah, that's what we were.
Oh, no, no, okay.
What?
Okay, I would got confused. They're not helping with the regreening efforts.
What are they
They're
doing?
they're here to train because they haven't started regreening here. So they won't. So arbitrarily, it's okay to fuck up this section, Green Hill.
It's okay. We're really making more work for other people. People like that in this
Whatever.
comic. Yeah.
Hmm?
People like that in this comic.
Yeah.
But yeah. So comically, after Lanolin's very level-headed briefing, Tangle runs down a hill saying, "All right, let's kick communications butt."
Mm-hmm. And then it's very silly. But I guess to illustrate the point, Duo looks over at Silver, who is suddenly just ensconced in his psychic glow. I guess he was floating, but he starts walking and it doesn't stop being psychic.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so glowy. Because Duo is like the psychic kid. He could be trouble if I don't play this right. And of course, he exhibits what a masterful master of deception he is for the rest of this comic.
Yeah. Hey, hi, I'm Duo, he says. He's playing his sort of like affable, plucky little piece of shit character that he's invented.
Yeah. And
Silver has a
Silver
real
introduces
gem of a
himself.
dialogue.
It's like, Silver! He says, "You're the new DC recruit, right? Man, that's so cool.
DC.
DC!"
Oh boy. There's been some very, like, just hamstrung, whatever the term is, just like heavy-handed.
Ham-fisted?
Ham-fisted, thank you. Just integrating of the Diamond Cutter's branding in the comic lately, and I have bought approximately none of it.
I mean, it's less and less clear what a Diamond Cutters is supposed to be as we keep, I guess, just piling members into it. Silver's now a part of the group, maybe, I guess?
I hate that.
Like, I guess, so here's the thing. The original Diamond Cutters was, I believe, 5 members.
Yes.
Whisper was one of them. Mimic was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he is currently using a form that, as per writer Evan Tanley, is basically a modified version of Revolver Ocelot. That was his name, probably.
It doesn't matter. He was invented to die.
Yeah. Silver here, I guess, is a bit like Psychomantis. That was her name, probably. She was invented to die.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were 2 others. Weirdly, when I look at it, I feel like Landlord is probably the mimic of the group, and Tangle probably represents the very large-chested bear.
Even though she has the tiniest chest of the group.
Yeah. But she's very boisterous, and the bear man, I think he was a bear, was very boisterous. So yeah, like, I guess the idea is that, like, we've sort of recreated something similar to the original Diamond Cutters, because Psychomantis was like a psychic, and Silver is a psychic, but the different kind. Anyway, I did just want to point that out, that, like, I do think they're going for something here, and that's why we have suddenly acquired 5 members.
Yeah.
It's very abrupt, but, like, now that I've seen it all come together, I realize that it's something I don't really care about. Anyway.
So, Duo the cat starts laying on the flattery and the just ego stroking with Silver.
Yeah, saying that he's nothing special, but he always heard about Silver.
And then starts being like, is it true that you took down Metal Overlord? That you fixed the metal virus?
Which, I just want to say, like 10 people ever saw Metal Overlord. It was on Angel Island.
Boy.
It was
kind of a tell, actually, if, like, Mimic has as, like, Eggman intelligence. Like,
I mean, I don't think even Mimic should know. Because, like, does Eggman know? He wasn't active to archive it.
I guess not.
You know? Like, Metal Overlord was, like, the least relevant thing to the world of Sonic. I don't think... if you told anyone about it, it was probably about as relevant as friggin' whatever the original one was.
Neo Metal Sonic.
Well, no, when Neo Metal Sonic turned into... So in Sonic Heroes, when Neo Metal Sonic turns into a really big monster, it has a different name than the one in the comic, because the one in the comic technically was using the Master Emerald.
Metal...
Wait, no, that was called Master Overlord, wasn't it? Metal Overlord was the original one from Sonic Heroes, wasn't it? I think so, yeah. I think that in the comic, the one that Silver was involved in was called Master Overlord.
Oh boy. It'd be cool if this comic had an editor so we could just not think about this. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But yeah...
Anyway, my point wasn't that it's going to be inaccurate, because I didn't even realize at first. but that it's kind of a pointless like reference. The average person in Sonic's world wouldn't know about it, and in fact, I don't think Mimic would. It's very non-resonant, and I think it's just there because Silver hasn't done a whole lot in the comic, and otherwise it would just be the metal virus, which, in fairness, was a much bigger deal.
Yeah.
It was with his help that the entire world was cured of a really shitty zombie virus. You'd think that'd be enough, anyway.
It was on the Restoration Wiki. The very expansive Restoration Wiki they maintain of all their experts.
Yeah. It's there at the founding of the Restoration.
Yeah. It's just... But yeah, Duo says to Silver, "You're a legend." Putting a fine point on how Silver has irrevocably changed history and should be evaporating right now. But he also says, "I've heard that you can move stuff with your mind. How much can you lift? Like a car?"
To which Silver says, "Pff, that's nothing," because his ego has been fully stroked and he is ready to sew off.
He's long and strong right now. And he lifts rocks.
He lifts a lot of very large rocks, and then Duo is very clearly frightened of this level of psionic power.
Yes. Oh, wow, he says,
with a very nervous expression.
Well, Silver has a very just smug look on his face here.
Yeah, because to further, he's very feeling full of himself in the moment. He's like, "This really isn't that much, but I don't want to tear down the whole mountain."
Which you could do, This is a very bro-y moment. Just like, how much can you lift? Do you lift, bro?
I definitely don't personally read it as being very bro-y. Like, this part of Mimic's, like, manipulation is good because it's actually subtle. It's like, he really comes off as just an earnest fanboy type who's just like, "Wow, how much can you lift with your mind? That's so cool." Mm-hmm. And Silver, because he's been buttered up so much, is really not having any suspicions right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and ultimately it gets kind of called attention to later in the story, but the big problem of this issue is caused by the guys.
Mm-hmm.
But Tangle sees this display of power and is like, "Woo! Looking good, Silver." And then the one Sylvangle shipper in the world is like, "Yeah, it's happening, guys, it's happening."
Lanolin yells, "Can you bring those rocks down here? Maybe we can use them." And we get a very conspiratorial cut into Duo's face before he kicks Silver's ankle.
Like a Jigglypuff. And then makes him trip.
Yeah, which of course makes him lose control of the rocks, and they start falling on all their friends. And there is a panel to make it clear that, yes, Whisper saw that.
I didn't really grab that from the panel the first read through.
No, but I also didn't, but it is evident now.
Yeah. You have to read it twice. But, Lanolin is already sick of Silver shit.
Yeah, so, upon having rocks dropped on her, she's like, "Of all the... not like that!"
And as the mountain rumbles, Silver flies into action.
Yeah, yelling, "Suit, I'm coming," as he's going to try and, of course, grab all those rocks and save everyone from dying. And Duo's looking real smug until water starts pouring through the rock wall he's leaned up against.
And there's a very scared expression and then a very adorable expression afterward in the next panel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, guys. The murderer is being really cute right now.
He's very Muppety.
Yeah.
Look at him. He's got these huge eyes and his funny little mouth.
And
a giant robot fist crashes through. So that leaves Tangle and Whisper and Lanolin to fend for themselves as the rocks are still slowly, I guess, falling towards them and the water is rushing in.
And can I just say, it's nice to have action that like we can actually parse without like having to read the comic over and over.
Yeah.
That's something that you can easily take for granted because you're understanding it, as opposed to when you can't understand it and then you focus on it. But like, let's just call attention to that real quick. Just we know what's going on in the comic right now.
It's something that typically Evan Stanley will give us is action that can be followed, action that can be understood. In this case, Lane asks Whisper if she can fly them out of there, but Whisper, has to disappoint, saying that Green's hover isn't fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, Tangle steps up to the plate, twirling her tail like a lasso and throwing it up. It's a very fun thing she doesn't get to do enough, but
yes, it's very good.
When she's using her tail as like a grappling hook, she does twirl it and throw it.
Yes.
And then she latches onto the cliff above and starts pulling them up. And then as she does, she's like, "Ooh, can we call this move Scorpion Formation?" And Lanolin, very annoyed because they're almost about to die, yells, "Less naming, more surviving," through gritted teeth.
Yes, and on that note, I should mention, this is probably Lanolin's best issue yet.
I mean, I really feel like I'm finally getting a handle on what Lanolin's character is supposed to be!
Yeah, which we didn't really get to have before.
Not through her entire introductory arc was her character established.
Mm-hmm.
She got a sob story. Not that seems to relate at all to what her true character seems to be, but
Yeah. They split up, Lanolin and Whisper going together.
And while Tangle just pulls herself out of the hole. So Whisper activates her green hover, and Lanolin uses her cowbell.
Her cowbell wispin that is very mechanical and very designed. Who made
Where did
this?
that come from? Like, it just surveys on her.
I mean,
Tails didn't make it.
More credit to this comic, and to the detriment of other comics that we've had recently. The action is clear enough to where I'm actually seeing the cowbell like mechanically move and be a wispin, so that I am finally like aware of it being wispin enough to be like, why is it a wispin? Whereas before I was so confused and like unsure of what the action was, I couldn't even figure that out.
But yeah, she takes her cowbell off her neck and then shakes it and with her wisp's power, makes a sound wave that shatters the boulders.
Mm-hmm.
Thus securely preventing them from any potential danger. Then as she touches down with Whisper, she says, "Not exactly the training I was hoping for, ... Where are the boys?"
Which tickled us due to our extensive Sonic comic history.
Where are the girls? Where are the boys?
Finally,
the long-awaited sequel.
We're asking the very important question. But Tangle can't see them, but then she can.
Yeah, she at first can't see them, but then she's like, "Wait, there's a giant metal fist. That's probably the boys."
Probably.
And we zoom into that giant metal fist where it's in the middle of eating Silver, with Duo helping out by keeping its jaw open.
Yeah.
He yells at
he yells at Silver, "Come on! Tear this thing apart already!"
And then Silver mentions, "It's a lot harder when they fight back." The jaws start to close around him, even with Duo's help. So,
Duo
Mimic,
knows out.
Mimic, because he's such a master of deception, lets his disguise fall, partly, letting his eyes go black, his pupils go white, and his mouth go... It doesn't look like a skull, and it never has.
He looks like a wrinkly old man.
And when he's not, it looks like he's a wrinkly old man when he's in default mimic form, and otherwise he just kind of looks like his mouth is sewn shut.
And it's weird that that's coming through here when, like... I know why it's coming through here. It's because that's how he looks in his regular form. But we've seen his mouth before he double-crossed everyone.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's implied at least that his making himself look like he has a skull face is like a deliberate choice to look scary.
So then him doing it here just feels weird.
Are you trying to taunt the man right before he dies? Because that's a terrible idea. Anyway, Silver is like, what? Duo? As he clearly can see
He's
his
looking
eyes
back
different.
at him.
Like,
Duo's looking back at him in this panel. He's
making
spanking his
sure
ass.
that Silver sees it.
Yeah.
And then Silver yells, "What are you doing? I can't hold this!" as the jaws clamp shut.
Presumably, Mimic at this point is also just cackling.
Internally, yeah.
But then a boom happens.
Yeah, Silver gets the jaws open a bit again, I guess, with a grunt. And then a boom occurs. I assume it was Whisper with her orange wisp.
Mm-hmm. There is a big dent on it.
Yeah. The girls arrive with seemingly having been swung in by Tangle.
Yes.
Tangle yells, "You're okay!" to Duo, while Lanolin yells, "Where's Silver?"
And Duo, the actor, is like, "I'm sorry, I couldn't save him. The teeth, so big." Only to hear whoosh and go, huh?
Yeah, and we see it's actually pretty fun. There's a graphic behind Duo of the jaws widening.
Yes.
It's not literally the jaws widening, but it's a representation of it to show that, like, because we see the jaws have closed again on Silver. He's having a bad time in there.
It's very artful.
Yeah, and we see Silver emerging from the now pretty busted up, thanks to Whisper, robot, and he throws it with his psychic power against a wall. Very victorious, and then immediately, because he's pissed, yells, "You ditched me!" at Duo.
To which Duo responds, "Ditched? I was gonna call for help!"
Silver, crossing his arms, says, "Then why didn't you say so?" And Lanolin, who has, I guess, already decided to have a grudge against Silver because he dropped a rock on her,
Yeah.
says, "Hey, there's no reason to point fingers." And I know, I just noticed his expression.
Oh, I loved that when I read it.
Oh, he has a hand on Duo's shoulder, and he has the most puppy dog eyes with big cartoon tears in the corner as he's looking up at Silver.
Mommy, Silver's picking on me.
And then Lanolin lambasts Silver, saying, "I expected better control from you, Silver. With powers like yours, there's no room for error." He says, "It's an accident." To which he says, "Well, accident or not, next time, do better."
And we cut to Silver just stewing on the roof of the secret entrance of the Restoration.
Which, as we all will recall, is the garden said for the Victory Garden that he planted with Blaze in the first annual.
Yes. In the next page, the final page of this story,
Yeah.
Whisper meets Silver on the rooftop. Just saying...
Much to Silver's surprise.
It's very Batman of her, just saying, "Silver."
And he goes, "Ah!" And his eyes bug out.
It's a very well-drawn eye bug out.
He apologizes for the reaction, saying that he's just kind of distracted again. He says, "I can't stop thinking about what happened at Green Hill. Something about Duo is just off. When we were trapped in that big fistbot, he was a completely different person."
To which Whisper responds cryptically, "I saw it."
And he says, "Saw what?"
Whisper says, "You didn't trip. He kicked you."
Silver pauses, and then says, "I could swear I saw his eyes change color."
Whisperer, growing more concerned, asks, change how?
And Silver describes, the white part turned black and his irises turned white.
Whisper places her mask over her face and says, we're going hunting. To be continued.
And boy howdy.
That feels good. That's a good ending to a story, to like a part
It
one.
is a good ending. I don't know how Duo's still going to be around in like 5 issues, because he's still on covers.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen covers pretty far out, and he's still around. So, next issue's going to have to really do some heavy lifting to justify... I guess from now on, Whisper is going to be suspicious of him, because he's now at this point pretty sure that that's Mimic.
Yes.
But of course, he can't know for sure unless he actually exposes himself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess we're currently in a bit of a cat and mouse situation.
Yeah. I think this story is really good. Misadventures Part 1.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been better. There's some parts that don't quite work, but honestly, I don't ask for perfection.
Yeah.
This was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going back through... Page 1 was definitely a very refreshing start.
I think it helps that page 1 and the last page are both really good. So you have a good beginning, good ending, and there's enough in the middle that justifies itself to where I just feel good at the end.
Yeah. My criticism of page 2 definitely still stand. It is very much just rushing through exposition and stuff to get the comic where it was going. I do feel like maybe if there wasn't a B story, then maybe this comic could have...
If we just had 8 more pages...
maybe the comic could have more naturally flowed into this. But when we actually get into the story, because like the story itself proper starts at page 3.
Yeah.
We got 2 pages set up, and then we're starting the story. And technically it starts on page 2, but...
Yeah.
And once we get into the meat of what this story is, it's all just good.
Yeah.
It's to the point without feeling rushed, aside from page 2 itself. It's got good action, it's got good character moments. Lanolin actually gets character moments.
It's the best showing we've had of Lanolin yet.
She very much is established as someone who has a short temper, who doesn't like dealing with other people's nonsense. And honestly, seemingly someone who just does not take, like, mistakes well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't matter if you meant to do something bad. You fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And she's clearly not standing for that.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's good to see any of this.
Yes. Yeah. There's another story in this comic.
Yeah. But I did want to talk about the A story.
Please
since we
do.
finished reading it. Well, that's what I did.
Oh, god damn it.
Oh, you're just trying to...
Can we go back? There's when Duo's tear the thing apart already, it's like he's real upset, I think there's something there we can talk about, just for another hour. But there's another story.
Yeah, it does feel very much like he expects this to actually not be something to harm Silver, because he saw Silver... I do want to actually talk about it. He saw Silver do that massive feat, and he just assumes that Silver can get out of this easily. But when he can't, and when Silver's struggling, he realizes, oh, this is an opportunity. This is too much for him. If I leave him, he'll die. Yeah? You have a different read?
So I think that's a very valid read, and maybe even just what actually is the intention. For me, when I read it, and I saw that expression on Mimic's face when his eyes go black, I thought he was like, oh, things are going south. I'm going to get out of here so I don't die. Because...
I mean, that also could be it.
It could be a little bit of both. But yeah, just, because, Mimic gets out when the going gets rough.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he does. And we may see more development on that front, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's only 8 pages.
So let's talk about speed sightseeing.
Yeah, I want to mention on this first page. So we see Sonic and Blaze. We also see a cameo of some characters that, if you know them, good for you. You get to see them here and know who
Yeah.
they are. But like
You
we
also
see,
get to see one of them on Twitter all the time if you follow their Twitter account.
yeah, but Sonic and Blaze are there. They're having dialogue, and half the page is blank. It's just action. It's background. And you know what could have gone here? Speed Sightseeing. Story by Ian Flynn, pencils by Little Worm, inks by Rick Mack, and colors by Reggie Graham. You know, just I just think there's a lot of empty space here. You know, it's perfectly like formatted to like have a logo.
Yeah. I like the thing is we read comics that aren't Sonic comics. Other comics still have their title page, you know? They have an
Yeah.
opening page that has dedicated blank space, like this blank space, there that like you put the title of the story, you put the credits and all that, and it's good.
It's good to have it like on the story where like the credits are for like because then you have a very direct like, okay, I'm seeing this person's name and now I'm seeing what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we have this page where they are going through a very difficult Sonic the Hedgehog level.
Yeah, particularly, I think they're going like backwards through a part of a level I remember playing because I did play Sonic Unleashed recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and you also did. But I remember remembering this stage in particular. So yeah.
I just look at it and I think, God, I hope there's a better stage after this.
Mm. Got buzzsaws and swinging pendulums with blades.
Yeah, like I know, like kind of the character of Sonic involves him be like, God, I love buzzsaws and pendulums of blades and whatnot. But like when I'm seeing that in the video games, it's like this is tedious.
So yeah, as per usual, the action on this comic, we get two long streaks of light.
Yeah.
This comic's favorite effect: long streaks of light, or fire in Blaze's case, to show the route they took across the unmoving spinning buzzsaws and the pendulum, which is, I guess, the only real threat. Like, you could deliberately walk into a buzzsaw, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's weird. It's weird also, I think, to treat the level elements as diegetic when, like, this is a city.
This is a city. This is a comic book with a story, not like gameplay or difficulty.
Yeah. Because we're in Spagonia, actually.
We are.
A beautiful part of Sonic's world. It's got stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
Not my favorite locale from
Definitely
Unleashed.
not. No.
I do think it's a nice touch, like, speaking on a thematic level, like, the idea of, oh, Blaze wants to see the world, let's use a location from the Sonic game where we explore the entire world.
Yeah.
And I think Spagonia is a good enough one. It's going to be one that most players will be familiar with because you go back to it a lot to talk to Professor Pickle. Mm-hmm. It's one of the earlier locations, so even if you didn't get far in the game, you'll recognize it. It's the level with the ghosts in it, so having the cameo of the ghosts from Night of the Werehog makes sense. You can also get that bonus. So, you know, in terms of location choice, I think this was a pretty good one.
Okay. Blaze says, I'll be honest, Sonic, this was not what I envisioned when you said we take the, quote, scenic route. Sonic responds while ducking under a pendulum, or just sliding past it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it just nearly is missing him, so...
Yeah. He says, we've seen so many tranquil landscapes, I figured you'd like to spice it up a bit. And, Blaze says, you're not wrong. However, I'd heard that Spagonia was an especially beautiful city. To which Sonic responds, oh, it is. Ready to switch it up, then? And Blaze answers, please do. I'll follow your lead. And then there is a very long panel of... that spans from the bottom to the top of the page of them scaling up.
On the left side, we have 3 panels with a lot of white space in between. And then on the right side, we have just a conical panel. And, you know, there's just spirals. It's just like... Mm-hmm. It's streaks of light and flame again. Mm-hmm. Actually notice if you notice the third example of Blaze's streak of fire actually looks more faded than the previous two, whereas you would think that the less recent flames would be less strong, and then the more recent flames would be stronger.
There's a lot of like things that are like a bit wrong with this if you look closely enough, but it does the job of like they're going up.
I mean, honestly, I do kind of want to just talk about the fact that like these streaks aren't very good because they use them way too much.
Yeah.
And it feels like they are just taken for granted as a visual effect in this comic, and I really want them to stop. Like, I get that like it's a way to sow speed, you're going to use them at least some of the time, but good lord, it's way too often.
The thing that gets me is like, since it's a cone, they would be there's another side to this, and they would be going along that, and while still ascending. But like,
yeah, the angle.
Their beam just only continues as far up as they were when they reached the edge of the panel. It's kind of hard to like describe, but like, Sonic shouldn't be like taking this many spirals at the rate he's going.
Yeah, and neither is Blaze. Like, you can see Blaze is the exact same thing. Like, they're exiting from the left of the frame, and they're re-entering from the right like it's the Pac-Man or Super Mario Bros. Or, no, Mario Bros.
Just the original. Mario Brothers, yeah.
Yeah, not Super. Whereas, like, if their angle was shallower, and, like, they traveled some, it would work better. Like, if you're just glancing at it, it's fine. But, yeah, if you do spend any amount of time, you will notice that it doesn't work.
They pop out of a grate, and then they zoom, and they get on rooftops to run.
Mm-hmm. For a nice little rooftop run. Nice little orange roofs. And
Sonic asks, "Are you good to go up there? The view is worth it, I promise."
And Blaze looks a little uncertain due to her canonical fear of heights.
Yeah, and she says, all right, if you say so. And then we get more scaling.
Yeah.
This one might be a little better.
Yeah, well, this one, there are paths that you can see that they're clearly reaching and then running on. So it helps to sort of skirt around any inaccuracies, because it's like, well, they're just sometimes on the paths and not scaling all the time.
Yeah.
Blaze did also just run up, like, 2 entire stories and then go diagonal, which is very impressive.
Mm-hmm. But, yeah, they make it to the top.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I just noticed, the clock tower here is like, it's like, I don't know, 256, but it's clearly immediately like 259 when Blaze is, because they reach the clock tower and then Blaze starts standing on the minute hand. Mm-hmm. And it's clearly like about 256 when they're running up it, but then it's immediately 259 when he's standing on it. And like maybe it was meant to be like, oh, they've been looking for a minute or two?
Maybe.
But yeah.
Yeah. Also, we have this moment of Blaze talking about the positively marvelous view that we get maybe half of like a panel to look at, a very square, tiny panel in the comic.
Because the rest of it is taken up by fucking Big Ben over here.
Yeah, and
The clock face itself is like half of the art on this panel, and the actual look at the clock tower, like you can barely see any city behind it. There was a view like in the previous page, but it's not very inspiring because it's just a bunch of samey looking houses.
yeah, I never really liked Begonia for that reason. It's just lots of like close together houses,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, like I feel like if they didn't sacrifice half the page to Big Ben, we probably have more room for like the actual moment that matters as opposed to, but how did they get up at that clock tower? I
Mm-hmm.
need to see the exact paths in which they ascended.
I mean, to be honest, I'm looking at the previous page. You wouldn't be losing anything if you stuck the Big Ben panel on the last page. Like, there's very little that happens. Like, you could have just stuck all that on the left side, stuck Big Ben on the right, and then had a better next page instead.
Yeah, yeah. But we have the page we have right now.
Yeah.
Blaze remarks that the architecture of Spagonia reminds her of her own world and dimension. Sonic says that he didn't get to see it too much of it, and he'd love to go back and see more. But before they head back, he asks if Blaze wants to grab a bite. And then he just kind of humble brags his knowledge of the local cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
Restaurant Soir's pretty classy, he says. Or get up Yosef's if you want something to eat on the run. And, but there's some silence, and Sonic can't handle that, so he says, Yo, Blaze? Blaze apologizes and says she can't help but be distracted. And then Sonic's like, yeah, it is gorgeous out here. Before thinking better of it and saying, or do you mean you don't like heights?
And he looks very embarrassed, like he wasn't thinking about her fear of heights when he has to go up here, and he just remembered it.
Even though he did say, are you good to go up there? Which is inherently like, just like,
Yeah, I mean, like, there could also be like he wasn't really thinking it through, and now that they're actually up there, he's like, oh yeah, the heights thing. But I think it's kind of a cute moment.
And in the next page, Sane's shippers eat. I wouldn't do that. It's been so long since they've seen food, they might think you're trying to poison them.
Yeah.
But
also, if a starving person should be started off with something very light.
Yeah.
So at the very least, they're doing that right. You know, something like broth with that it doesn't have any real substance to it, but does technically have nutrients.
Yeah. So Blaze talks against a backdrop of basically just Sonic Channel backgrounds, like wallpapers, saying, neither. You've shown me so many wondrous sights. I've come to love your world as much as my own. And the Sonic shippers are like, and you've come to love Sonic as much as... That doesn't work, huh?
So, specifically what we get is the two of them at, I guess, an ice cream parlor. Then Sonic bringing Blaze to a clothing store.
Where they presumably bought nothing.
Yeah, because they're not wearing anything that they weren't wearing before. And then it's the two of them in...
Holoska.
Where
Blaze has conjured a huge flame.
It's pretty big for her hands, because it's a handheld flame, but it's fairly large and is trying to warm Sonic up, who's very cold.
I just look at that and I'm like, isn't that gonna like melt shit? This is like people's where they live. Just get a coat. Get a burqa. Dipshit. Sorry.
They do utilize fire up in the Arctic, so it should be safe. But yeah, basically this is, I guess, to establish that Sonic and Blaze have been hanging out for a bit during the vague amount of time in between the previous story arc urban warfare, and now, which I guess time happened.
I guess.
An amount of it.
Then Blaze goes on as she looks up into the sun. So shouldn't I show it?
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I just noticed that there's no clock tower behind her.
Yeah. There is.
I guess you have to fill the sky in somehow because you decided to put her on a massive clock tower and.
A massive, ugly clock tower.
I guess maybe it should have been closer in for more of a side angle to get the sky if you wanted to, like, not just delete the clock tower for one panel, but...
This beautiful clock tower brought to you by the colors beige, puke yellow, and seasick green. What sights you can get in Spagonia. She asks, so shouldn't I show it as much dedication? Should I not also strive to protect it? And she continues, in a line that... Ugh. Here's how I read it when we were reading it together, Cluster 9. I am the Imperial Princess of the Soul Empire. Because we are bringing that up again.
I once again have to complain directly to Ian Flynn. Ian, if you say of the Empire, you don't have to say Imperial. This is so redundant. Why do you keep doing this?
I guess
I swear.
Imperialism is really cool.
It's not cool. It doesn't sound cool. It doesn't sound interesting. You could just say, I am the princess, even, and everyone would accept that. You don't have to say this massive, unwieldy, unrealistic title, because no one would call themselves an imperial princess of an empire.
Yeah. One could say, she goes on, that she is a representative of her world, her reality. She should be doing more. And then Sonic retreads what Knuckles says in the last annual, saying, you've saved your world and all that jazz. You're here for a well-earned vacation, and I don't mean one of those working vacations. And there is kind of a cute line here where Sonic says, Joel had to explain that idea to me. Sounds like something Ed would come up with. And then Blaze just calls attention to it, saying Knuckles said something similar, with the editor's note for Sonic the Hedgehog Annual 2022. And there's also an admittedly cute line here where Sonic says, it was obvious enough so that it has to be easy to understand. Blaze, putting her hands on her shoulders, basically just says, be nice.
Her hips.
Our hips, right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
It's okay.
She says, be nice. And Sonic's like, you're right. He can't hear me. I'll save it for later. That's pretty
Which is fun. Like, it speaks to the fact that it's not, like, malice that drives, like, Sonic or Knuckles with their teasing of each other. It's the fact that they do have a friendship, and they do just have sort of the teasing kind of friendship that, some people have.
Yeah. Blaze says, I envy your ability to balance recreation with duty. Perhaps I can learn your ways on our travels. Sonic starts saying to Blaze what he said to Shadow in Sonic Adventure 2. And then,
a direct quote.
Yeah, so that's a bit of Mike Awashiro's writing in this comic, or at least localization of it.
Yeah.
Gong, gong, gong goes Big, Big Ben. And Blaze says, I was enjoying the view, she says, as she clings to the tip of the clock hand, like a scared cat, because she is that. I did not require a reminder of how high we are. And Sonic laughs at her terror, that's a joke, and says, well, looks like it's time to go anyway. And Blaze groans at the pun, as she should. Sonic says, I don't mean to tell you what you should do with your time here. I just want you to enjoy yourself. And Blaze responds, I understand. Perhaps I will count this as a preview. And
I don't know why she says that.
It's the writer's best approximation of how people talk. Sonic says, sounds like a plan. And it's like, I forgot I told Tails and Amy to grab them lunch on the way back. You cool with grabbing something on the go? I think Swat only goes by reservations anyway. And Blaze says, yes, that sounds fine. and there's some very faint like blush lines as they are holding hands, and when she is agreeing to get lunch with him. If you look really closely,
for no reason.
Like I said, just you don't feed them like this. But
yeah, this is like one thing that I did see on social media, people just incessantly posting, and then I blocked them because I didn't spoiler tag it even remotely, and it's like, the comic hasn't been out for 3 hours, y'all. I didn't read it till the next day, okay?
Yeah. You didn't read it until the day came out.
Night. Yeah.
Because, Sonic comics don't need to be read like fucking midnight. God damn. But like, Sonic says, you want the quick way down to the scenic route. Blaze wittily responds, actual, quote, scenic, or your version. Sonic unhelpfully responds, it's kind of both. And then Blaze wisely says, I'll take my time. Sonic says, cool, see you at street level. And then we get another cool panel where they're going down the corridor. I love Sonic Unleashed video games.
Yeah, so Sonic is like sliding down the side of the building somehow. I'm not really sure the physics on that one. While Blaze is, I guess, she's shooting fire from her heels, and I assume she is slowly descending. While you just hear a fucking like butane torch sound effect.
And that's speed sightseeing. I didn't really like it.
It had some moments, and like I said, I think I said it. I think this is one of Ian Flynn's better recent works.
Yeah, it was very damning when I heard it, and it's still damning now. But
I mean, he's put out some real shit lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh right, we usually read the solicits.
I'm sorry, y'all. I went into this comic not knowing if I would be reading the rest of the series. So give me a sec. Next issue's coming out. Yeah.
It says on the page, next time, a duo of Silver stories.
Oh, yes, there is.
Because Silver the Hedgehog will be featured in both of the A story and the B story.
For some reason. Not that you know it from the retail incentive of next issue, which is a cover of Sonic and Blaze hanging out. Maybe it'll make sense. It's coming out in September 6th, either way.
Current.
That's this September, not next year, but who knows with the delays. And the official solicitation for next issue is, and I'm going to read it from the Sonic Wiki because whatever. It's the
easiest way to find it.
This issue is all about Silver the Hedgehog. First, he's incredibly suspicious of the Diamond Cutter's new member, and he jumps to a conclusion leading to some hasty accusations. Awkwardness ensues. Then, Blaze comforts Silver as they bond over being away from home and in Sonic's world.
I mean, Silver's usually... It's his world, too. It's just he's from the future. But,
Yeah.
But yeah, the solicit, as usual, is pretty garbage and doesn't make the next issue seem remotely appealing.
But this issue was pretty good.
Yeah.
I feel solid, like you're sure enough to say it's pretty good. It's a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think certainly in this particular case, having a B story dragged it down.
Yeah.
Because while Evan made wonderful use of her time, even with the reduced page count, and only having really one page where I felt it was rust, which, when 8 pages less, pretty good.
Yeah.
When I got to page 2, I honestly felt like, oh, maybe this isn't going to be so good, but the rest of the comic really, or the rest of the story really redeemed it, so
yeah.
I was impressed by that.
Mm-hmm.
But a big problem with speed sightseeing is that, honestly, it probably should have just been in an annual, and I think they're not doing an annual this year because they're doing the 900th adventure.
Yeah, they are.
Which we're not reviewing.
We're not reviewing because we're not going to buy it.
Yeah, I'm not dignifying that comic.
It's a sham. But yeah, very good showing from Evan with her 16 pages. And it really the comic unfortunately is a bit dragged down by the format. It's finally adopting. We've been talking about like, hey, if we had A and B stories, maybe things could move along better. But they've decided to move nothing along with the B story here, just kind of retreading what we already went over in the annual.
Yeah, and honestly, this feels like it was written for the annual and then had to be scrapped when they decided to do the 900th adventure and not do an annual, and then it just got and it's ended up in the main series instead.
I can't decide if it would have been better or worse if they just put speed sightseeing in the annual, because then it would be two annuals in a row of like, now listen, Blaze, you take a vacation.
I mean, there was also talk about Blaze's vacation in urban warfare. It's so generic.
Yeah. But yeah, I just have no respect for the B story whatsoever.
Yeah, it's inoffensive, but it also is taking up space, and like it's not something that like it's something that I paid for. You know,
Yeah.
this was like a third of the comic, and
Unfortunately, they wasted the third of the comic, so
yeah,
maybe next issue will be better. Who knows?
like I think you really hit it the nail on the head when you mentioned like the Sonic Channel wallpapers and stuff. Well, because like for those not aware, like certain artistic members of the Sonic team put out various illustrations. They post to social media and on the official Sonic Channel website, which is a great website with a lot of cool art. You should check it out. And like a lot of the time with those, like with the Sonic picks in particular, they do like different scenarios, sometimes featuring characters that maybe you don't see as often. And this story was basically just 8 pages of comic to deliver basically the same amount of emotion that you would get from one of those images. If they had just released an image that was like Sonic and Blaze going shopping, or at Holoska and Blaze is warming Sonic up, that would have been about the same amount of emotional resonance that this comic in its entirety, this comic story.
She's warming him up. She's warming him. Sonic. But we can't do any more with Bengal. I'm sorry, guys. It's just not possible. We can't really.
No.
Do romance.
Look. If a romance happened, imagine how the Sippers would react. It would be so bad. Anyway, here's Blaze blushing at holding Sonic's hand, an interaction that has never existed in the games.
Yeah. It's annoying when people are disingenuous.
Yeah.
But that's the comic for today. We had a better time with it than I thought we would for a while, but it was good.
We even had a better time with it than I thought we were getting when we were reading page 2, but
Yeah, like the page 2 kind of has worry there, but the Evan story was good. The Ian story was inoffensive enough. If we keep this up, maybe we'll have an okay time during these misadventures.
Yeah. Not looking forward to whenever, Ian is back telling the primary story, but,
It has to happen eventually because we settle for less on this comic, I guess.
Yeah, like, it doesn't technically have to happen.
Exactly.
Ian Flynn never has to write another comic in his life, or at the very least, never in one that I am invested in reading. He could just write My Little Pony and Transformers and whatever other stuff he writes that nobody reads because people only care about him reading when he's writing Sonic.
But yeah, I had a good enough time with this comic, and it's leaving me feeling better about what's to come. So we'll see how that feeling goes going forward.
Yeah. In regards to like next issue, something that I talked about before this storyline with Mimic began was that I really did not want it to all blow up immediately.
Yes.
and it is very quickly having cracks though in it, which is not to my personal I want to say contextless
Preference?
preference. Thank you. I couldn't remember the word. Um, but I really enjoyed this story, so I'm looking forward to where it goes from here.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to how like the, now that you know now that Duo is no longer a boy with no suspicion on him, how Mimic is going to try and handle dealing with the fact that he has scrutiny on him.
More puppy dog eyes.
I mean, probably, but we'll see what else is there.
I mean, since he's been so dog shit at being an infiltrator so far.
Yeah.
Absolute fucking worst master disguise I ever fucking saw.
God.
But yeah, that's the comic. Thank y'all for watching. We try to stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Tuesdays like yesterday, Thursdays like tomorrow. We do have hopes of streaming maybe tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's our review of the comic. Please feel free to follow us on Twitch and maybe subscribe on YouTube if you're watching from the VOD. Leave a like or comment if you want. Close to read the comments. And I guess until next time, I'm Felicia Rondo, and that's close over there.
Hi.
Bye.
Bye.